Good evening. Welcome to the August 5th, 2024 Cabarrus County Board of Education work session. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight. Our Teacher of the Year, Mr. Caleb Snell, welcome. Our board members, Brian Floyd, Rob Walter, Keisha Sandage, our Superintendent, Dr. John Kopicki, our Vice Chair, Sam Treadaway, and board members Pam Escobar, our board attorney, Mr. William Eisenhower, and our board clerk, Christy Spade. The board has just reconvened in open session from closed session. We will move to 1.01, our Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Board members, will move to 5.01. I need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I need a second. I have a motion by Mr. Floyd, a second by Mr. Walter. Board members, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved as presented. We'll move to 6.01, board chair comments. Today we had the opportunity as the board to go to the RISE conference today for our teachers, and it was incredible. I wanted to just say that the Board of Education just wishes all of our teachers and our schools and our school staff just well wishes as we start our new school year. I did want to remind the board of a couple of things since this is the start of a new school year. This is going to be in accordance with Policy 1010, Board Authority and Duties. As leaders and representatives of Cabarrus County Schools, our board strives to meet its duties as specified in school law by maintaining the integrity of the board by functioning as one corporate unit and not as individual members, providing every student in Cabarrus County with the opportunity to receive a world-class education, being a strong advocate for school system, the employees, and especially for our students, in all the board's interactions with government entities and the public, the hiring and supporting of the superintendent and his administration by evaluating and responding to recommendations related to educational programming and facility needs, and creating policies that establish standards, accountability, and the evaluation of essential operations of the school system. Thank you, board members, for your commitment to continue to do the important and necessary work of the Cabarrus County Board of Education. And I just appreciate all that you do, and as we start this new year, we'll start off really well. So thank you, and we will now move to 6.02 with our superintendent comments with Dr. John Kopicki.
Thank you, Mrs. Adcock. I'd also like to take a moment to welcome our teachers back. I hope you've all had a great summer and you're all feeling energized and ready to begin another fantastic school year. This morning, as has been mentioned, we had the pleasure of welcoming our secondary teachers at our annual RISE conference. They were enthusiastic, full of energy, and excited to see our students return next week. A large group of our staff members presented professional development to their colleagues at RISE, and we are blessed in Cabarrus County Schools to have exceptional staff members who strive to encourage each other to reach their full potential and share their unique talents and knowledge to make our district the best it can be. Tomorrow, I look forward to our elementary teachers bringing their own energy and knowledge to the RISE conference as well. As a reminder, Early College's first day of school will be this Thursday, August 8th. Our remaining traditional calendar schools will begin next Tuesday, August 13th. I would also like to congratulate West Cabarrus High School on winning the Spirit Award today. They were the chosen group that was awarded the Spirit Award. It's become quite the sought-after award each year at RISE. So congratulations to Aquanet Edmond and her staff for achieving that this morning. I'd also like to thank the board for showing up and being part of RISE and taking the time to engage with our teachers. I know you're all in and out there through the course of the day, and it meant a lot to our teachers. As I have said to our teachers, and I feel very confident in saying this, that the board feels the same. We support our teachers. We believe in our teachers. We thank our teachers. We're grateful that they are dedicated and as compassionate as they are. Without question, they are a major reason as to why we are so successful here in the Cabarrus County Schools. So excited to welcome them back. More excited to see the kids. That's our why and what we do every day. But I just want to take the opportunity to thank our board for participating today, for their support, and again to thank our teachers as well. Our open houses, as a reminder, Cabarrus County Schools will be hosting open house events for families and students this week. If you haven't done so already, please remember to check out our Back to School webpage for a complete open house schedule. Our Back to School page is also filled with reminders such as calendars, school health, school nutrition, and supply list information. And you can find our Back to School page at www.cabarrus.k12.nc.us/back to school. On Tuesday evening, the district will send out important parent information prior to the start of school. This will include parent handbook and student code of conduct information, parents' bill of rights information, updates to our electronic device policy, and other important administrative topics. Please remember to check your Parent Square accounts, district social media, and our district and school web pages for these updates. If you should have any questions that you can't find on any of our communication sites, I encourage you to please call the principal of your school, and they will be happy to help you and answer any questions you may have. Reminding all of us that the R. Brown McAllister Elementary School dedication ceremony will be next week, and that will be open to the public Monday, August 12th, starting at 4:30 p.m. with the dedication ceremony. And this school is directly behind the original at 505 Sunnyside Drive, Southeast Concord. A reception and public tour of the new facility will follow at 5 p.m., with the monthly business meeting of the Board of Education scheduled to begin in the R. Brown McAllister Gymatorium at 6 p.m. So our business meeting next week will be at the R. Brown McAllister School beginning at 6 o'clock following the dedication. So again, welcome back everyone, and here's to a wonderful school year, and can't wait to get started and see the kids next week. Thank you, Mrs. Adcock.
Thank you, Dr. Pickey. We'll move to 6.03. Mr. Eisenhower, do you have any attorney comments?
I do not.
Thank you. We'll move to 7.01, our reports with construction update with Mr. Brian Cohn. Welcome, Mr. Cohn.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Kopicki. Where is this, Matt? Top right. Okay, I'll just look at the TV. Is it going to work without that on? Okay. So this is our update for everything we have going on in the world of construction for the past couple of months. So we'll start with R. Brown McAllister. Obviously, this facility just continues to make improvements each and every day as the administrators and staff continue to unpack boxes, get their classrooms set up, ready for the students coming in next week. We did have the contractor on site a couple of Fridays ago, which was our last Friday off. There was nobody in the building, so they were able to complete some miscellaneous punch items that they needed to tend to. And we still have some things we're working through with them, but we're creatively doing that around everybody else's schedule, making sure we don't impact the staff that is there. Open house is scheduled obviously for this week, August the 8th, 4 p.m. So that's going to be the first opportunity for the students and the parents to see this wonderful facility. The dedication ceremony is scheduled for Monday, August 12th, as Dr. Kopicki just mentioned. We are working on some additional graphics to be created and installed over the next couple of weeks at the entrance at the request of the staff. And then we continue to monitor the weather ahead of some seeding that needs to be done outside. We have proactively delayed those measures until we get into a better growing season. If you plant seed right now, it'll just essentially die. So a couple pictures for you. There's the wayward graphics at the entrance. And they're standing top of the main entry looking back down towards the front door. the playground, looking back on the classroom courtyard area. It's one of our group toilets. It's on the second level, looking down over into the gymatorium. The front entrance one evening a couple weeks ago. It's our entry lobby, cafeteria, and then there's an updated aerial showing both campuses. A real quick update on the roadway improvements that are a part of this project. All the type 1 and type 2 poles, so type 1, those are the mast arm poles, type 2s are the pedestal mounted poles. They are all installed with the signal heads installed on them as well. The accessible handicap ramps that either needed to be added or modified have been completed. The milling and pavement, if you've been up and down Union Street, you see that that work has been completed. The signalization loops, the signal loops have been installed and they'll be completed this week as well. The fiber that we're required to tie in as a part of the City of Concord requirements for the control of the signal, it's about a quarter-mile fiber we had to run back up towards Lawndale. That's been completed as well. Pre-marked striping has been completed, and we had a review with NCDOT and the City of Concord this past Friday. They approved everything, so the thermoplastic striping will start taking place this week and be completed before the end of the week. We are hopeful that either tomorrow or Wednesday they will begin flashing these signals. City of Concord likes to have a 7-day window of them flashing before they actually go into operation. And the City of Concord has installed some new directional signage out on Union Street that they had agreed to do for us, directing parents and visitors to where the entrances to both Coulter and Webb and our Brown McAllister entrances are. That's looking north on Union Street. That's the intersection of Wilshire and Union Street right there. Any questions on R. Brown McAllister? Yes, ma'am.
So can you go back to the picture, the last picture? Can you tell me what each one of these lights will do? Because I pull up to this account every day. So the lights that are where the arrow, the double arrows are, what types of lights are those? Are those like a stoplight that will blink, or how will they function is what I'm trying to figure out.
So they will always be functioning. They will never be just flashing. So it'll always be an active signal. The best way to explain this, if you're driving on Wilshire coming up to Union Street, there'll be two type 2 signals you can see there at the opposite end of Wilshire that you will either have your left turn movement or your right turn movement, and that'll control that access. The main pole you see in the middle there that has 4 heads located on it, that controls the southbound traffic on Union Street for both left turn movements into R. Brown McAllister or the through traffic going on south on Union Street. The pole in the higher portion of that image that has 2 heads on it, that controls all the northbound traffic on Union Street, which would be either a left turn movement onto Wilshire or straight through into downtown Concord.
And then there's one that...
There is one that you cannot see. There's another one there that you can see controls right there at the intersection of McAllister. So because it's a 5-phase offset signal, you're going to have cars that make a right turn off of Wilshire, but they're going to get probably controlled and stopped because they're wanting to turn left to go into the school campus. So that signal will control that movement.
Okay, and then one more picture before. Right there, yeah.
Oh, that one. Okay, yes.
So these 2 lights, again, by the arrows, those look pretty small, and I am seeing 2 lights. Oh, I don't even have my mic on. I'm sorry. I'm seeing 2 lights.
That's just a single head. That's a single head signal that controls the movements coming off of Wilshire. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and they look pretty, like,
different. It is different in that it's just a single head mounted on a pole, but it still has your red, your yellow, and your green.
So
It
that
looked
would,
just like a regular signal.
that was my problem. And then the tree looks like it's covering it.
It
some.
does. It is. Yes, ma'am. We're going to be trimming that tree.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
So the school zone lights that flash, who controls those? You know, the ones that go on in the morning, I guess.
City of Concord would manage all of those.
And do we talk to them about what the hours are for the school?
I do not, Mr. Walter. I'm assuming that's already set because they're set around the
You
city
got
of
two
Concord.
schools operating at two different times, is that correct?
It is, yes. So we've had conversations with the crossing guard officer that handles all of our crossing guards to make sure we have additional control there because of the two schools as well. So
But it's the city of Concord that actually sets the timer for the,
we set the times, but they'll set the timers on they control those lights. Yes, sir.
just make sure it's taken care of. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Floyd?
I just want to say that the students I know and the staff are very, very excited, and this school's got a lot of buzz, and a lot of people are very, very excited about it, and we're really looking forward to this year. And just thank you for everything, because it is top notch. I've been in a couple times, and it is really something else.
Yep, we're excited.
Ms. Escobar?
I have a simple question,
Okay.
meaning maybe my thought process. Are most of these kids in this neighborhood, are they walking or are they doing car rider? Because I know elementary parents in general like to drop off. So is it going to be a little chaotic there with the two schools?
So the schools are staggered for start times. There's a 45-minute window in between the two. We've intentionally set a 7:30 start time for the new R. Brown McAllister and an 8:15 start time for Coltrane Webb. That was intentional because of the impact that you may see from a traffic perspective. Ms. Smith and her staff obviously have a lot fewer walkers because predominantly their kids, will not be walking to this school coming from where they are. So we won't have that impact. You will have some cars parking in the city-owned lot there on Union Street, probably getting out and walking their kids to the school, as did R. Brown. But you won't have near the influx of walkers that you probably do with R. Brown. So, and part of what you're not seeing, there are pedestrian signals at all of these crossings as well. So there's controlled pedestrian signals that, you push the button and it lets you know that we want to cross the street. So, and crossing guards. Yep. So.
Any other questions? Okay.
Just a quick update on Northwest Cabarrus. We've kind of been in a holding pattern, but again, our construction documents are 95% complete, and we'll hold there until we identify the funding model when that gets approved with Cabarrus County. We will be sitting down with Shelco, our construction manager, at risk this week for our 95% CD cost estimate, which is kind of our last exercise prior to when we would go to GMP. We will probably, over the course of the next year, do some just what we call cost checks, just to kind of see on a quarterly basis where that number is, so we can continue to have conversations with Cabarrus County on that budget and where it seems to be trending. We have submitted plans to both DPI and DOI as a part of this project because that is required. We continue to review these construction documents as we sit down with the project team for any value engineering opportunities that we can still capture. We're going to obviously get to a point and, again, not be able to capture too much more because we've exhausted all our efforts. We've also applied for the Department of Environmental Quality, the erosion control permitting that is required as a part of this, as well as some off-site measures that we will have to take as part of the connectivity into the adjacent neighborhood. Currently, we still are trending at about a 5% annual escalation in our industry. So, delays on this project could have a very impactful cost to apply to the overall project budget the longer it does get delayed. And these are just some of the renderings of the project as it has been. Any questions on Northwest?
Any questions, Mr. Floyd?
How long has Northwest been on the 10-year plan?
Probably 15, long before I came here. Yeah, so I've been here 8, it's been on ever since
I'll
then,
bring this
so.
up to you, but you said, I'm glad you said something that you said. And we're in a holding pattern until we figure out the funding and get the funding approved. There are people, actively working hard to subvert that funding getting approved and trying to undo it in some cases.
And some of those people are within our ranks, and people need to know that. Central's, I think, been on the 10-year plan for 20 years.
Yep.
Those buildings are not going to keep standing. And it's not something that somebody should be making a political grandstand about. This is something we need to fix, and we need to get done now. This is ready to go. I think the populations of Northwest and Central need to know that, and need to know what their chances are looking like, and need to know that when they're getting ready to go vote. But most importantly, they need to be active in what's going to happen in their future, because I don't think they understand. And the escalation of 5% per year, I mean, that is a very real cost that we're building up. The longer we kick this can down the road and delay this very, very, very necessary project. And if you don't think it's necessary, I don't think you've been in either of these buildings. It is necessary. I don't think you can repair them. They need new schools, and they need to happen now. So it's very important people understand how serious this is. This is ready to go, and we need to be working towards getting this done, not working towards chaos and causing it not to get done. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
Ms. Escobar?
And just to add to that, I mean, the population growth in this area is, I mean, crazy. I don't know how else to say it. It's just, I mean, you can't drive around there and not notice the traffic, not notice more kids. The buildings are building more homes. We're going to have to meet the demand, and the reality is the current facility cannot do that. And so I would just like to reiterate, you know, what my colleague said, that we need this funding because there's real kids that are living in Cabarrus County. These aren't kids that might be coming. They are here, and they deserve proper facilities to be educated in.
Mr. Treadaway?
Mr. Conley, I assume the 5%, the final 5% for the construction documents are maybe contingent upon maybe some funding variables, or?
Less funding variables, more design changes that may be required at the time of when we actually are able to put this out to bid. So if there are code changes or things that, you know, one that we have identified that we want to change because of the cost, it kind of gives us the ability, the flexibility to do that.
Avoid change orders and things like that.
Correct,
down the road. Yeah.
Any other questions, board members? Mr. Walter?
I guess, can we do this project in phases, like do the outside stuff, fields and what have you?
We've had conversations of doing an early site package at one funding cycle, kind of in between the larger borrow, that would give us kind of a head start to get the project going. That way we could roll into the vertical construction of this project. The challenge with that is the gap of when those funding streams come to us, that there may be a larger gap than when we have than we would need to do the site package for this project. All good conversations to have with the county that would be productive and proactive in minimizing the impact of the escalation.
But you're having
costs.
those conversations.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Any other questions? Mr. Floyd?
Thing while I'm on a rant here. I think it's also important to understand with the funding, a phrase keeps coming up that I don't think people understand what they're saying, or I don't think people understand what they're repeating when they say they want a rising rate environment. Mr. Penn, you're a fellow finance bro. Are we in a rising rate environment, do you think?
Probably not.
I would say probably not. Thank you. So it does not make sense to make decisions based on being in a rising rate environment.
Okay. Dr. Kubicki?
Yes, sir. You ready?
Yeah, Brian, just a real quick question. I know we're preparing, I know you and Tim and your team have been preparing to go on the Northwest Cabarrus High School project, and
Yes,
a lot of this work stipulates that. I also know that we are right now surveying the cultural website to prepare
Yes,
to
sir.
build the elementary school, again, pending the funding, and the second one would be the Northwest or Southwest. Could you explain to the board and the public how we communicate those plans to the public once we get the go? So funding comes through, we're going to build an elementary school. How do we communicate that to the public? What's our plan? You and I have talked about that. Could you explain what the protocols are so we can inform the neighbors, the people that live in those neighborhoods, as to what's going to take place?
Yeah. So once the funding is in place, you know, we have, depending on what the project is, it's an elementary school, if it's a middle school, if it's a high school, we will engage the community at some point once we have solidified what that building looks like from a design standpoint. utilizing the land, the program model. You know, we want to make sure that we have kind of crossed our T's and dotted our I's before we go sit down in front of a community of people that this will impact, assuring them that, you know, there probably will be questions they have that we will have to find answers to, but we want to have as many of those answers front hand and ready for them when we sit down with them. The worst thing we can do is go into any kind of community meeting not fully understanding what that impact is or what it looks like. So we are always engaging, particularly on these neighborhood elementary schools. You know, we'll have community meetings. We'll sit down. We'll invite the community in that's impacted. We'll show them the plan. We'll let them be introduced to the project team and how we plan to manage that site from a safety and security standpoint. We'll let them see firsthand who the superintendent, who the face of that contractor is going to be as a part of that project, because he's going to be there for the duration, and he'll be the first one that gets called if something goes wrong.
And those meetings usually take place after the funding is secured, but then we go out and meet with the public and give them an idea as to what we're going to take place, not
Yes, sir.
before.
We don't want to get anybody's hopes up.
Got you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
So those advertised meetings, Brian,
Sir?
are they advertised in the
Oh,
paper?
yes, sir.
or-
Yeah,
how do you
so what we
communicate?
do is we reach out to City Concord. They give us their call list of all adjacent neighbors in that surrounding community. They'll send out an all-call for us as part of their system. We'll send letters out. We'll advertise on the district website. In cases of like R. Brown, we actually advertised in the paper for when that community meeting was going to be. You know, our school staff obviously has great connectivity to the neighbors and the parents, and you know, with social media and the things like that nowadays, word gets out very quickly.
Yeah, but there are a lot of neighbors that don't have kids in the system, so you
There
want
are,
to make
yes,
sure.
yes.
And I did attend a community meeting last week that
Yeah.
their issues, I hadn't heard anything. So school closes, nobody's told them that.
Right.
They have surveyors walking around their property, nobody don't know why, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
is there a way we could at least give them a heads up? I don't know, but I understand that you need to have everything in place. But
Yeah,
But
yeah,
is there-
and we will. We'll communicate with the community as to what the plans are, but we need to get a little bit further along in this process before we do that, so that we all have that confidence level, one, that it will get funded like we're intending, that we have that plan in place, that we know, you know, we've only just now started meeting with the CM on the logistics of that site and how we're going to manage gates and the access in and out of it and what roads do we want to do. We don't want to go into those meetings not having all those answers, because that's what
some
they're
of
that's
those
what they're
folks wanna
most concerned
Some of
about.
those folks want to share their opinions with you.
Well,
But are you the contact person if they have questions?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Miss Sandage.
So, I don't know what's up with these mics, but are they working?
Yes, ma'am. I can
Okay.
hear you fine.
Okay, good. So if we're going to build somewhere and I'm a neighbor or I'm in that neighborhood and someone is in my yard doing something, what has happened? Well, let me go back. Somebody is in my yard doing something and nobody has had a conversation with me from the district, the county, and I don't know why this person is in my yard. And I ask that person that's in my yard, well, what are you doing here? And they say, I'm doing X for the school. Why does that happen? And I guess that's specific to the conversation that we're having now.
Sure, because you have, obviously you have a common property line. So if let's just take surveying for instance, and you're surveying our property, but our property corner is their property corner. We're not actually on their property, we're just finding the corner, and that's all we're doing. So that is what they see. Statutorily, I'm required when we go and we want to physically survey somebody else's property, in the event, like when we do roadway improvements, I have to send a notice out by statute saying, we are getting ready to start this project and we will be performing survey activities on your property as a part of this. That's when we have to make that notification publicly to them. But until that time, we're just surveying our property, and if it's a common property corner and a common property line, where the footsteps fall, they may fall on their property to some extent. You know, I mean, there's only so much you can regulate.
Okay, so they wouldn't know because they don't have to know is what I hear. Because it's theirs and ours at the same time.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
Yeah, and it becomes, you know, the challenge with surveying is some people would have survey data on one piece of property that they think is theirs. Well, if you go and do the deed research, well, it says it's somewhere else. So then you have to start working through those conflicts to see who's actually correct.
So it would be safe to say that there's a likelihood that if I feel like somebody is on my property, it may or may not be mine, and then it may or may not be mine and somebody else's at the same time. I guess there's a fine line there, but I do think that it would be helpful if people knew this is going to start happening and giving folks some timeline so that they understand that even, I don't know, if they come tomorrow, like I'm going to understand that why they're there.
Right.
I think well, this is just Keisha talking. The onus is on us if we are getting ready to build and there's a neighborhood to give them as much notice and as much information as we have, regardless if it's theirs or ours. That's my thought.
Fair enough.
Thank you for
Yes, ma'am.
answering our questions, though.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
A quick update on the Northwest Cabarrus High School tennis court project. So this project has started. The crack repairs and the erosion cleanup were ongoing this past week. The new surfacing material was delivered for all 4 of these courts. And the installation of the court turf did begin this past Monday. We continue to try and hit a 8/14 completion date, barring any inclement weather, but that does not look like it's going to be feasible. So we will work with the athletic director. That date was earmarked as the first home match for Northwest Cabarrus, which was why we were on pace to hit that target, but I am less confident after this week's forecast. There's the turf as it's been installed and the sand infill on top of it, getting ready to be spread. Any questions on the tennis court project at Northwest?
Assume they're prepared with a contingent site for that first home match.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Okay.
Tyson works well with his ADs to take care of that.
Don't want them showing up playing on the grass like Wimbledon.
So here's another great project, the Health Science, and I apologize, it's Health Sciences Institute, I was informed, so I've been calling it the wrong thing all summer. The contractor continues to work on just some minor punch list items within the modular units. We did have a slight delay on our student desk and chairs with the primary furniture delivery, but they did come in last week and got set into place. We do have our TCO, our temporary certificate of occupancy, so the buildings are up and running, all life safety systems are in place, so we're good to go and utilize these buildings, just have a few minor landscaping things that the city needs us to complete, which we will not do until we get into a better growing season. The staff has been completely relocated from the Plaza building, which was been their temporary home for the last 2 years, so we are out of the Plaza building at this time. We're also working with Ms. Hyde and her team on some graphics to splash some branding around the inside of this school to personalize it some for them. We did some additional striping on the lot outside for some handicap spaces that code enforcement asks that we put in, as well as some directional arrow for the parent circulation and our emergency management fire lane access locations as well. We did install some additional outside deck area in between these 2 units. That was one of Ms. Hyde's requests as a part of this project, was to have an outdoor space for her students when it was nice weather to go outside. So we were able to capture that as a part of this project for her. And we've met with transportation, actually met a couple buses there last week on how that circulation looks for the buses and where they'll drop off and pick up students. And we're going to give them some additional landing spaces for them because they will not circulate in the parking lot. They'll stay out on Medical Park Drive and do their pickup. Here's the area in between the classroom building is the one on the right, and the I kind of call it multi-purpose admin building, which will be their dining, kind of spillover space on the left. And then there's one of the STEM or CTE classrooms set up. Any question on health sciences? Yes, ma'am.
So they're ready for open house?
Oh, we're ready. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
ready. Yep.
Mr. Walter?
How many students are we supporting with these 2 buildings?
There will
is
be
180.
180 this year.
180.
Yeah, so there's 60 per grade level. So we were 120 last year, so we're 180.
So that's
so
full
total for 240.
Is that full capacity, or we're going to need more space?
240. No, that's not full capacity. We're designed for the full program of 240 students.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted.
Yes,
wanted
sir.
to clarify.
Mr. Treadaway?
I like the idea of the color. I think sometimes those spaces can be
Yes,
very
bland.
Yeah, very bland. Is there like an industry standard for the longevity of this kind of construction?
That's given to the level of preventative maintenance that you're able to perform on them, I think. Obviously, they are not a long-term educational environment solution for your needs, but they do work well in occasions like this. We're looking at a 5 to 10 year home for these students here, is what our anticipation is. Chuck and his team do a phenomenal job at keeping them up and going. So I would hesitate to give you an answer. I'd probably defer that to Mr. Taylor, honestly.
Any other questions? Okay.
The Opportunity School update. So we have completed our schematic design with the project team, and we'll be reviewing those plans with FMD this week. Again, just so you know, we sit down with all of the FMD team, going through the systems and the layout and what that looks like, making sure that we're aligning this with the standards that they want to put in place. Because again, at the end of the day, when we walk away from it after 12 months, it's theirs for however many years that building's in use. And we want to make sure that we're putting in the systems and the things that they want to take care of and feel most comfortable with. We are issuing a request for proposal for a metal building contractor to join on with this project team. That will benefit us greatly going into our construction document phase, because metal buildings are a little bit different beast from a construction type, and they have some unique, not challenges, just unique wall details, because you have main frames and beams and just things that have to be detailed out a little bit differently than the conventional load-bearing masonry or metal stud or structural steel. We felt like as a team that would be beneficial for the design team, having them on board early on as a part of that process, so that we weren't just generically designing something and then we brought that team on and they're like, well, we need to change it to meet these needs or this industry. So it's helpful on many fronts. The DD drawings, the design development drawings, over the next week to week and a half will be issued to the Department of Insurance and Department of Public Construction as a part of our standard review process with them. We are still going to be reusing some existing mechanical units that we were able to pull off of other jobs that are fairly new and in good working order that Chuck has allowed us to use to help reduce the overall mechanical cost as a part of this project. And we are tracking, again, August 2026 as an opening date for the Opportunity School. That's just a model drawing of the floor plan there. And then there's the updated model elevation, most current from last week. Any questions on Opportunity School?
Ms. Sandage?
Can you remind us what happens to the old building? What's the plan for the old building?
So because of the administrative needs that we still will continue to have at the Opportunity School or the Glenn Center site, it will stay, in some form of working order at a very minimal effort. Because until we're able to relocate the administrative staff outside of that, we would not be able to transition or hand this back over to the county, assuming they would want to take back over ownership of it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Real quick on the Cultural Web Beverly Hills Replacement School. So we did complete our survey work on the entire campus. Because of the prototype, we'll be able to move right into our DD review with our facility maintenance department. Again, Rogers Builders was approved as a CM at risk for this project. And the hazardous abatement of this facility is being handled through FMD and Chuck's team. The design development drawings are going to be issued to Department of Public Construction and Department of Insurance in the next couple of weeks. We have begun the pre-construction activities on this site as well to identify what that construction budget looks like. And this school, again, is on track for an August 2026 opening date. That's the logistics plan there of the demolition phases, phase 1 and phase 2, that we are working to identify with Rogers and their team. And then these are some updated models that they have put together just to inform us on the site logistics and access in and out of this project as they work through it. Any questions on Culture and Web Beverly Hills replacement?
Any questions? Mr. Floyd?
Are we, August 2026, are we cutting that very close?
Yes, sir, we will be.
Not a lot of rope to play with,
Yeah, our fluff time is greatly diminishing.
so we gotta get to work.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Frances Wall Pre-K Replacement School. So the abatement for all the hazardous material has been completed. We sat down last week with the FMD team on all the systems and design, making sure that we, again, put those elements and systems into this facility that they want to maintain and take care of for the next 50 years. GW Lyles Construction Company of Concord, they were approved as our construction manager at risk for this project, so we have a local team on this one. Design development drawings have been issued on this project to DPI and DOI. Lyles has also started their pre-construction activities to begin identifying what this construction budget will look like. And again, there are 2 GMPs that we'll be asking for approval on. One is for the demolition, and then the second will be for the balance of construction. And as you can see, August of 26 is going to be a busy month because this one is slated to open then as well. That's just the rendered model of what the entrance to the new Mary Frances Wall Pre-K Center will look like. That's down on the back side of the campus looking up towards the addition, and the wing there on your right is the existing wing that we would be redeveloping and using as a part of this project. And then there's 2 of the elevations, one the front elevation and then or side elevation, and then one is the back elevation. And that is all I had. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have that you may not have thought of.
Ms. Sandage?
So the same question with the old Mary Frances Wall. What's the plan for that? Can you remind us?
So the grand plan would be to redevelop that into administrative space for the district. We feel that that is a much better suited site because of the access off of 601 to handle administrative needs versus educational needs. And that is where we would like to possibly relocate some of that staff that is currently at the Glenn Center.
So I'm trying to figure out when we say administrative space, is there a specific administrative?
So Kids Plus, accountability, technology, those are the 3 main ones right now that are located in the newer portion of the Glenn Center that we would be able to house over at the old Mary Frances Wall site.
So all 3 of those will be in between those 2 sites is what we're saying or suggesting? So no, so
we would move them all, the entire site. So then the Glenn Center campus would be vacant, and at the leisure of the county, we would hand it back over to them to do whatever they would like to with.
You about to make that make sense?
Yeah, so the long-term plan, if we can recall, we want to leave the Glenn Center altogether at some point over the next 2 years. So R. Brown McAllister Elementary School is going to open this school year. The old R. Brown is the transition school right now until we build a new Coltrane Beverly Hills school. Once the old R. Brown McAllister is empty, that's the discussion we're going to have with the board. One of the goals we would like to do is to make that a preschool or a tuition-bearing daycare center for our community, working with the city and the county, what have you. The old Mary Frances Wall School would then go to what you just saw, the new Mary Frances Wall School, which would leave that empty. We would refurbish that and bring all the folks that are at Glenn Center over there for offices. So the Glenn Center would be null and void. We wouldn't need it. We'd hand that back over to the county. The goal always has been to get out of the Glenn Center because of the cost to run it, the age of it, and then work with the county to see what their long-term plan is to do with that building. But our goal is to leave that building and kind of transition out of it.
Thanks for making that make sense. Appreciate it.
Mr. Floyd?
Would you mind reminding our 6 viewers on YouTube who the Mary Frances Wall Center serves? Who goes there? Can somebody tell us that? Just to make sure everybody's kind of tracking. We refer to it a lot, but I want to make sure everybody understands who's going to Mary Frances Wall.
Somebody smarter than me is going to tell you that.
I mean, I know I'm
hopefully-
asking for everybody who's paying attention to all these things, who never asked about Mary Frances Wall. I'm wondering how much we're paying attention to them. I just want to make sure everybody knows who they are first.
Absolutely. So we have a group of multiple students. So we have students that are there on tuition based, and that would be Cabarrus County Schools employees or grandchildren of Cabarrus County Schools employees. Additionally, we also have students that may have individual education plans that are serviced through the county, whether that's through NC Pre-K or other resources where they can get additional services for early childhood intervention.
Sounds pretty important.
So
to
to make the point home, there are some of that population is a very vulnerable population that we serve.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of developmental issues that we work with in the Mary Frances Wall Center. Again, it's another example of the extraordinary teachers that are in our system. But Trina Wentz and her group do a great job. But there's a very vulnerable group of students that attend the Mary Frances Wall School.
And they don't have many voices coming in to speak for them.
No, they
in my
don't.
experience in here.
And we need to
Maybe we should
advocate
be
for
that voice.
that, advocate for them, and make sure that we can continue to express how important it is to build a new Mary Frances Wall Center so we can meet the needs of all those kids.
Yes.
And
That's
we-
my question. How ideal is the current facility for that population?
It's not ideal, and going back to
Proximity to the highway, age
Yeah,
of the
so-
building. I mean,
so the
it's a pretty
long-term
rough spot for
plan,
them, right?
to the long-term plan, that was why we proposed building the Mary Frances Wall Center. And that, to be frank, a lot of that conversation came from community members about what was the long-term plan for the Beverly Hills site. So, I mean, it was a conversation between the community and some suggestions that were made, and internal conversation we had about developing that particular Mary Frances Wall Center in the Beverly Hills site so that we can keep the educational component there in the neighborhood to continue the history of having an educational center there.
I think it's important for people to understand the vulnerability of that population, the lack of representation that they get from people that are able to come in and speak to us and be loud, even though they might have a loud opinion, and that they can't just wait, quote. They need our help now, as soon as we can. Same question for you. August 2026, how close are we to being on track to that?
This one, obviously, with the scale of this project, is we're a little bit more comfortable with this schedule, making sure we'd actually hoped that there would be a possibility we could hit a January 26 target move-in date, but if it slips too much further, it'll definitely be August.
That sounds detrimental to a very important, vulnerable population that needs us to be their advocate. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think you're off the hook.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll move to 7.02, athletic and fine arts proposed stipend increase. Mr. Brian Tyson. Welcome.
Welcome, Madam Chair and Dr. Kopicki and board members. And first of all, I just want to thank Brian Cohn and Tim Louder and his group on all that they do. They have truly helped us out, and I'm amazed by his presentations each week and how lucky we are to have their knowledge to do what they do. And I certainly appreciate it with all the athletic projects that we've had going on last year and this year. They've been a big help. So I also have Fine Arts Director, Coordinator Bart Tolbert here with me tonight, and we are do what?
Thank you for having me.
And so athletics and fine arts are here jointly tonight. We get along very well, and that's a good thing. And Friday night football has to have the band there to be complete. And it's a great relationship that we've always had with fine arts and Cabarrus County Schools. So we're here tonight jointly to propose a stipend increase and a scale adjustment for our fine arts personnel and our athletic personnel. And we feel like this proposal is fiscally responsible. It's a very modest increase, but a very fair increase. I'll make sure this works. So, why are we here? Well, it's been a long time since these folks have had an increase. And while I said this one is just a modest increase, it is something. It's not going to get us exactly where we would like to be, but it puts us closer to that. And to get us back with or slightly ahead of our neighboring counties. One neighboring county kind of passed our proposal, so to speak, a few months ago. So we definitely want to get back in the graces of recruiting, and we don't want to just run with the Joneses. We want to be the Joneses. So that's kind of where I'm coming at from there. And it would so basically our why is getting extremely hard to find coaches and to find athletic directors and to find band directors and fine arts personnel. You'd just be surprised at some of the really good jobs that we have open, and there are very few applicants. It is amazing, especially like an athletic director or an athletic trainer and all. When those jobs are first shift jobs teaching and second shift jobs full time, you don't get home at night to 10, 11 o'clock. Those are second shift jobs as well. So that's why we're here, is the recruitment of highly qualified athletic personnel and fine arts instructors, and the retention of them. Once we hook them, we want to keep them. So we want to do that, and for the appreciation of it. And I think I mentioned that there's been no increase in over 10 years now. So I know I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but I'm going to read this to you about how we came across coming up with the scale adjustment. First of all, I'm going to flip to the next screen. Our current scale goes on a C0, meaning zero experience, goes up to 12 years. Okay, so that's what we went off of. So let me back up a slide here. So here's how we came up with this equitable proposal of a scale adjustment. First of all, we used the current scale, 0 to 12 years. We created 4 experience level steps to develop a new stipend scale, which would go 0 to 4 years, 5 to 8, 9 to 12, and then another step, 13 plus years. We took the amount of experience levels from the level 4, level 8, level 12 of the current scale and inserted the respective first 3 pay steps, and then created the 4th step for 13 plus years by increasing the amount proportionally. Fourthly, this ensures that no personnel will make less than what they currently make. Fifth, this ensures that our starting pay increased only slightly, went from a C0 to a C4, and I'll explain that here in a second. This allowed for some corrections in groupings to be made, and therefore 5 specific groupings created. And these groupings were created, my goodness, this is starting my 35th year, and the groupings were like this before I started coaching. All right, so we needed to go back and look at how we grouped these folks. And we took the higher number in grouping to assure all coaches were held harmless of making a lower amount. And then lastly, fine arts took what we created here, and Bart put his people in the appropriate groupings. So with all that said, this was our scale that I had up there. So the highlighted areas are basically, for a Cliff Note version, we just took the C4 level, they became C0. So you can see on that scale, well, that's not a big increase of money there. That's only $500 or so for most of the categories. C8 became C4, C12 became C8, and then we made another category proportionately. Okay, so we did that. So that was I thought, very fair. Again, it doesn't get us where we want to be, but it's a start. So then we did the same thing for the middle schools. So you can see the increase there from, since it's a start, let's say the athletic director says it's starting at $4,250, they'd be at $4,800. Or a basketball coach that says it's starting at $975, they'd start at $1,250. Okay, so we did the same thing here for our athletic trainers, and then talk about setting our groupings, getting those right, because what that'll do in the future is if we get our groupings right, it'll be a whole lot easier. Let's say 5-10 years down the road, and I'm probably not going to be standing in front of you 5 or 10 years down the road, but when they come for another increase, you can easily say then, okay, we're going to give everybody a 5% raise or a 10% raise, and then it just makes it easy. We don't have to go back and regroup anything. So we cleaned our groupings up here and put those in 5 different groups, and obviously the athletic directors and the trainers are going to be in the higher group of level 4, level 5, and the band director, because those folks are working 3 seasons instead of just coaching their 1. So those are our groupings, and the reason some are highlighted and some of them are not is to hold those people harmless. We took the higher number in those groupings to end up with this, okay? So as you can see, we took the higher number of those so nobody would lose any money from what they're currently making. And then that was our ending up scale, okay? So that was two things. We just really changed our groupings a little bit, more equitable, and we moved C4 to C0 on experience level. So really that's the Cliff Note version. Pretty simple when you look at it that way. Then Bart came in and put his band folks in the scale, as you can see on the far right. All right, next, now we talk about money. Okay, so we've got about 575 paid coaching positions. So that's a lot of people. Bart's got about 65 already approved fine arts positions, and you'll see here in a minute proposing another 21 for middle schools, which they don't have any paid positions for right now. And he can talk about that. So I think you saw the highlighted area there again. I just want to make sure I got that in there again about the no increase since 2014. I don't know why I put that on there again, but so the high school difference when we did our cost comparison was 181,000 some odd dollars, and middle school was 79,000, so our total of 261,436. That's without our FICA and retirement. So then Bart looked at what was his current scale compared to what the new scale would be. Well, the current scale was going to be about $57,850 difference, okay? The new scale, the new positions that he's proposing to add for middle school also jumped it up slightly to, $99,850. So you say, well, that's quite a bit of increase. No, it's not when you look at it with common sense. There's 21 positions that he's requesting for our middle school kids to get, and only $42,000 difference to add 21 positions for our kids. All right, I'll take that bargain any day of the week. 21 positions, $42,000. So when you look at it for the numbers, the grand total, not counting FICA and retirement, was $319,000 for combined athletics and fine arts. But when you added fine arts middle school positions, it was $361,000. So then we went ahead and added the FICA and retirement, and those were your numbers at the end. 404 with the already approved positions, and 456 with the 21 middle school positions. And I can certainly advocate for fine arts and middle school positions as well. So we hope that you will consider this increase for our coaches and our fine arts personnel, our ADs and athletic trainers, because we definitely want to recruit and put the best people in front of our kids. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So I will be quiet now. And Bart, do you want to add anything, or do you folks want to have any questions for us about how we did this? Or we've got a lot of principals in here up front, former principals up front and behind me, and I don't think any of them would disagree with the need to do something for our fine arts folks and our athletic folks.
Mr. Floyd?
Thank you guys very much for bringing this. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. So I'm glad you said it twice, but it bears saying 3 times. 10 years since the last increase for athletics. Mr. Tolbert, how long since the last increase for arts?
That would be 2008.
Some have never had, right?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I got that right. That don't feel good to me.
Coaching supplement.
Okay, so first point I want to make is I talked to a few teachers, coaches from other districts that want to come here, are ready to apply, and they're waiting to find out what happens with this right here. One of them's a male EC teacher. Last I heard, we need a couple of those. We could really use that. This guy's got his finger on the trigger, ready to go. But he can't do it until he knows he can at least be close to what he could get somewhere else. Okay, so that's real important to me. Today at Rise, for example, I don't get to take many pictures, but I do talk to a lot of people. One of the great football coaches in our county and from another county, he told me straight up today, I'll be completely honest with you, I don't coach anymore because I can make more money doing driver's ed and have more of my time with my family. Okay, we got to do something about that. These coaches, these band directors, these course directors, the things that they do are insurmountable. They can't be done by normal people, the amount of time they spend. I could go on and on, but I'm going to try to shorten my speech here a little bit here. But we talk a lot about supporting these folks. We talk a lot about supporting the arts. We talk a lot about taking care of our people. We give a lot of attaboys and kudos and say, this, you guys are matter to us, you guys matter to us. I'm tired of talking about it, and I want to do something about it, okay? Those people probably appreciate those attaboys until their mortgage payment comes due on the first of the month, and they got to figure out where that money comes from. We're not going to get help where we're not going to get help from on teacher pay. Well, we can do what we can do to help these people that make the biggest difference in our students' lives. Okay, these guys are running band camp right now. They're running basketball camp, football camp. All that stuff is going on right now, and none of that is happening for a price. That's out of the goodness of their heart. Most of those coaches I know are putting together peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and cheeseburgers to send home with these kids, and putting shoes on their feet, all out of their pocket. Okay, what they do is incredible. And you got band directors spending all night Friday at a ball game and then getting up the next day on Saturday and going to band competitions all day. They're driving buses, they're doing all these jobs for free. For free, basically. The extra things that they do on top of their job for free. So they need more than vocal support from us, from me. I've got to be better, all right? It's time. We're not talking about people who are just winning games. We're talking about people who are absolutely changing lives, and we've got to get even. This puts us in line with Rowan County, which is a big one for us, and this makes us competitive enough that people can feel good about leaving Charlotte Meck, which is also important to us. All right, and the last thing I want to say is I know that we have to figure out how to fit this into the budget, but to me it's not just a priority. I'm just one vote, but I'm absolutely going to demand it myself. I mean, that is, I will die on this hill. So I think we need to do it. We need to take care of these people. My life was changed by a band director, and my life was changed by a football coach in high school. I know other people in here have similar stories and similar stories about their kids. We got to take care of them. They deserve it, and they hadn't had it from us in a long time, and we got to do everything we can to take care of them. So I just want to say that I'm very passionate about this, and I hope everybody else can be too.
Ms. Sanded?
Well, I ain't gonna come behind that and do all that spill, but I think a lot of people know that, you know, sports are important to me, and as well as arts is important to me, but I do want to understand where this comes from, so that we make a clear indication this is how we're going to fund it, as opposed to looking frivolous, and I know that's not what we would do, but I want to understand, and I guess that's a Mr. Penn question, where this comes from. I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's some funding that we get or revenue that we get from participation. How does that work as it relates to football and as it relates to fine arts? Do we charge a fee for folks to get in there and we get some of that revenue? How does that work? So again, I'm trying to boil down in a nutshell how we're going to fund the acts, and then does some of that, where does that funding come from in other places?
Yeah, I'd have to defer the main part of that question to the expertise of Mr. Penn. But as far as the schools go with gate monies and all that, that goes to no athletic personnel. That goes to those schools are self-sufficient and self-funding. Of to say it bluntly, football is the cash cow, and that supports pretty much all your other athletic teams. If those stands aren't full in football season, your other sports suffer. So basically, the gate monies revenues go to pay for your transportation, for your officials, for your equipment, and just in officiating. Before they play the first game of the year in officiating, they're $25,000 to $30,000 just to pay for officiating. Another $15,000 or so for transportation, another 15 to 20 for security, to have officers there. And the prices of all these things have gone up. I mean, we're paying now $40 and $44 an hour for security. Bus drivers are $25 an hour, and if we don't have a coach with a CDL, so right, yeah, and our coaches are doing it for free if they have a CDL. So, but as far as the actual, where does the funding come from? I would have to refer that to Mr. Penn.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me about the need.
Right.
What I want to understand is we're saying this is the need, but we also need to put out there how we're funding it and where
That's
that
right.
money
I
is
agree.
coming from. I have no problem with what you're asking for.
Right.
Thank you for asking
Yeah.
for it, actually.
Oh, I know you don't. You've always been a good supporter
Right,
of
right,
athletics,
right.
and I know your son and daughter as well.
The other question I have, or maybe a statement, is, I remember us here a year or so ago with Bex Robotics, and I just don't want us to make decisions tonight that we didn't, or we maybe should have, when that same argument came to us about Bex Robotics. Those folks are also not getting paid well, and they also are not getting some of the things that they need as a result of not being paid well. So I just want us to keep in the back of our mind that we had this conversation brought to us not so long ago. Thank you for your presentation.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and the VEX robotics program, I've worked with Mrs. Reeves and also with Jennifer. I'm not going to Callahan. I just want to pronounce it wrong. Callahan to address the coaches and the assistant coaches this year, and then Sarah and I are kind of working through that this year. So we will address that. Again, it's not enormous sums we're talking about, but we're confident we can address the VEX program as well.
That should be consistent with
I
this,
just
though.
I just want us to make sure that we know that this came in front of us a year or so ago, and I don't know that we did anything to change the situation, and here we are again, and we just need to be mindful of that as a board. And I'm just one board member, but I think both are equally important.
Noted, and very strong point. And again, advantage, disadvantage, or good or bad, these are the issues and the problems that we've been dealing with over the last couple of years, and you all know this as a board and have been very supportive. Again, it's Mr. and I'm not even trying to be funny, like, it's been 10 years, and if we, and I understand that you can't throw money at anything, but this is a very reasonable request. It's something that we need to do if we want to continue to keep our influential adults in front of our kids. And I know no board member saying that they don't want to do that. The point I'm trying to make is these are problems that have existed. We just need to we have to bring them up. We have to talk about them, and ultimately we have to address them. And just kind of bite the bullet and say, $440,000, whatever the number was, is really not that much money when you talk 21 positions, 42,000. I wondered how many total positions here we're talking 400,000. It's peanuts on the dollar when you look at it. So, and
Yeah,
again, I know the board.
661 positions in all compared.
And I know the board's not saying that, and I hear what you're saying, but good conversation, very valid points, and VEX is definitely something that, again, me and Mrs. Reeves are working on, and I've met with Jennifer in the last week. I just met with her to get an update on the VEX program.
Ms. Escobar?
I'm sorry. So my 2 points that I would like is I want to understand where the money is coming from, and I want to make sure that we remember that we talked the same conversation with VEX Robotics. And my son is a coach, so I truly, I'm for this. I just want us to keep those things in mind.
Right. We're glad to have him.
Ms. Escobar?
Thank you both for coming together and working on this. I'm just going to echo what my colleague said. These are the people in our kids' lives that can change them, make them better, discover things about themselves that academics doesn't necessarily cover sometimes. So I understand the value of it as well. I am curious about where the money would come from, but I'm going to go back to my simple question. So for someone who's not understanding, all of these positions are people who are already working in our schools, and this would be an additional amount of money that they would get for the extra that they're doing beyond their teacher position or their staff position. And then also that this money would be broken down over 10 months, correct? Like this amount of money, this $3,000 I'm looking at, for example,
right,
that would be on top of their already state-funded salary over that 10 months.
Yeah, we pay in athletics, we pay at whatever season you're coaching. At the end of
Okay.
that season, that's when they get their stipend. That's how we do it. Now, I think fine arts, y'all do it because y'all do it throughout the year. Is that right?
On the band side, we do it monthly, but with the rest of the fine arts areas, there's a fall injection payment and a spring injection payment.
Okay. Okay. So that's where they sort of get like a bonus, or that's where they're.
Yeah, it's a stipend. Yeah.
Okay, and just back to athletic director, I'm just trying to understand that's a whole separate position, isn't it? Like, isn't that person a full-time athletic director, or are our athletic directors also staff?
They're staff.
They are.
Yeah,
okay.
They are staff, and they teach as well.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
So that's why that's
yes,
why
all
they're
of these
in
are
this.
stipends, and they, obviously them and the athletic trainer, they do 3 fall, winter, and spring season. You know what I mean? Instead of just coaching volleyball, you know what I mean, in the fall, they're doing athletic director and athletic training positions all throughout the year. And part of your question too, as well, is some of these are obviously non-faculty. Probably about a third of our coaches are non-faculty members, so they wouldn't be an employee. They would be obviously just receive the smallest
That's all
amount
they
of
get.
stipend. That's all they would get.
And
Yeah.
then that's another. So the athletic director, right? That's all year. So are you talking about? So when you're putting them in the same category as a head football coach, football's a season. Is the athletic director getting this twice or 3 times, or is it just once?
The high school football coach is in there with the middle school athletic director, but the high school athletic director. So they're getting one time. Let's say for most of our guys, they're between, let's say, $8,450. That is, they get a third of that in the fall, a third of that in the winter, a third of that in the spring. So they're not getting rich by being an athletic director. That's why it's so hard for us to really fill those positions, to be honest with you. And that's the struggle, because that is, like I said earlier, that's a first and second shift job. And, trying to convince somebody to do it for $2,500, $3,000 each season for all that after school is tough.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I understood the numbers, but I will also support Ms. Sandage's request about understanding where the funding could come from.
Right.
And then I will also say to Bart, I do support the 21 positions. You got to build a bench, and middle school is where you start so that they can get into high school. And I mean, I've witnessed the bands at the middle school level, the theater programs, the choruses, like, they are amazing, and it's amazing what they can take a 6th grader in August and what they can produce in December. And so yes, I support that too, but we got to know where the money's coming from. But so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Floyd?
I want to also, Sam could probably talk more to this, but to help people understand, an AD is almost right hand to the principal. It's more than just even an extra administrator. It's a high level administrator too in the building. That means a lot, and they have a lot. I mean, they're cutting the grass, they're lining. I've lined the field in August. It ain't fun. They're doing all that stuff. I mean, I've looked at the budget. We've got room for it. Am I correct? Not to put you on the spot. Probably shouldn't have done that.
Well,
I know we haven't got the audit back.
Yes, what I would say is I think that
I didn't just frivolously get up here and decide I'm gonna start demanding money. Well, I've looked at this.
I think
there.
I think it's fair to state that the funding of this is we could fund this, that their funding is available, but my only caution would be that I've talked to Mr. Penn about this, and he could speak to this as well. We probably would like the audit to go through first to give us a solid footing as to what funding we have in terms of any kind of surplus that we may have, and also make sure that we are addressing all the needs of the district. This is a priority, but again, I think it would just be financially smart to let the audit go through.
I agree.
Let everything settle. We'll know what the funding is, and we come back and talk about what that looks like. I think this is a great plan. I support it. I think it's way overdue. But again, we have to make sure we can fund it to all of your concerns as a board. I think that's what we would look to do, is have the audit finish, have Mr. come back and report this is what we can do.
And for those coaches and directors at home watching, roughly when do we expect that audit back? Do we have any idea? I know we can't
I would believe sometime mid-October we would have it done.
Okay.
So if we were able to, we get the audit back mid-October, either at the October or the November board meeting, we could implement some kind of an adjustment for the stipend increases that have been proposed. We'd have better information to talk with you about that. But again, because we support this, we just want to be financially responsible too.
Agreed.
Mr. Walter?
Yeah.
If I can, Rob, I don't mean to belabor, but what comes to mind to me right now immediately, you all didn't see it, but if you were at the end of Rise today and you saw the fine arts performance, nothing needs to be said. You just watch our kids. We had poets and poets there, and story writers there. We had musicians there. We had dancers there. We had artists there. I mean, you see the kids perform. You see the work, and you're blown away by the work that our teachers do. So I know you all know that, but again, it's at the forefront of my mind when I saw it today and I saw the kids' performance. And you know, if I had a tenth of that talent, I wouldn't be sitting here. I can tell you that. They're incredible. They're just incredible. And I just think that it's as Mr. Tyson alluded to earlier, we need to be competitive with other districts. I don't want to lose anybody. When I see that, I want to make sure we keep what we have, because they are just inspiring so many kids. And I'll leave it at that.
Couple thoughts. I am glad that we're including fine arts in the proposal and that you spent a lot of time looking at it. It makes sense. I think you can kind of understand it. I think certainly you don't want it to not provide it to other folks on the middle school side. But the question here, if a middle school band director is also an assistant for the high school band, do they get paid twice? Do they get both of those stipends? Or if you have a coach that's coaching two different sports,
That's basically coaching two different sports, correct. That's you work there. If they are serving as the assistant to the high school director, that is 100% extracurricular work for the high school, as opposed to 100% extracurricular work for the middle school.
So they'd be eligible for both?
Yes, sir.
Right now they're just eligible for the high school?
Just eligible for that assistant
Right.
high school position if they so choose to work with their corresponding high school.
Okay. And then I also would support the VEX robotics, because that is a coach, and it should be consistent. And then following along with everybody else, so that's, you know, these are local funds. These are not state funds that pay for this. And it's recurring dollars. And we have a budget process that we go through that prioritizes all the needs of the system, and we make decisions, and hard decisions, on what we fund and what we don't during a budget process. I don't think it's really appropriate, if we're going to set a precedent, to go beyond the budget process to add something, because I think Dr. Kopicki said he's bringing us another proposal next month for something else as well. I just want to caution doing that, because we do have a budget process for a reason. And then my third comment is we just passed a policy change that says any surplus that we have goes to capital. So this would not be eligible for that.
Mr. Treadaway?
Yeah, I enthusiastically support this pending funding identification. These folks impact so many kids in such a powerful way. I do want to circle back for just a minute to Mr. Cohn's presentation. If you've been to the performing arts in Northwest and Central, we can do better. We can do better than that. And so circling back to this is important, but also a place, a venue that honors the work that our directors and our students are doing is important as well.
Anything else, board members? Okay, so from here we'll get an update in October. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
So we will move to 7.03, our policies for first read with Dr. Sandy Ward. Welcome, Dr. Ward.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Kopicki, and board members. Glad to be here this evening. We have 4 policies that are up for a first reading. We did not receive any information, so I will go ahead and dive right in. We have policy 1760/7280, the prohibition against retaliation. And this PLS update was just clarifying some language that was within the policy. Do we have any questions about that? Very few revisions. Okay, thank you. The next policy is 3220. It's technology in the educational program. We've had a couple of revisions here. Mainly, Dr. Kopicki brought to our attention, we wanted to revise that policy to take out the bring your own technology initiative that was in there from a long time ago when we were doing COVID and all the good things. Since Cabarrus County Schools provides all of our students with their devices, there's really no need for a bring your own device part of that policy, so we struck that out. And then there were some additional revisions there, mainly around artificial intelligence, AI, talking a little bit about training our staff and our students on the, I guess, the positive use of AI, because this is now impacting, all of our lives and things of that nature. And I know that Mr. Carl Sane has some plans to be able to train our staff, which will also trickle down to our students on the use of AI in our programs.
How often would we have that training? Is that an annual training? Is that?
Well, I just saw something in board notes. So we do have trainings coming up soon that are offered, and I'm assuming once kids get back to school and we kind of see a lot of what's going on, Mr. Sane and his department will be offering more of that. Do you have anything specific there, Mr. Sane?
Because it's not specific in the policy. If it's a one
It
and
just says
done,
a
or
training
are we
pro-
going to
yeah.
be doing this every year for folks?
So we will have multitude of trainings on AI. Think of this as two components. One component is how to teach our employees to effectively use artificial intelligence. Part of it is also to teach our students how to use artificial intelligence. Part of our relationships with state funding is also tied to some of this work. So we have some protocols in place to make sure that schools are following a process, that they are also doing some of this training within their buildings so that we can get funding for some of our network capabilities. But for instance, today at RISE, I think we had 7 sessions during just the secondary day associated with artificial intelligence. That number might be incorrect, but those are one-offs of things that we're doing, but we're also obviously planning to teach educators holistically about artificial intelligence. We do not have a set in stone plan that we could roll out right now.
How long do you think before you do?
I'm actually working with my team to strategically plan that kind of stuff out. We're actually having a conversation around that this week.
Maybe give us an update at some point in the future, please.
Ms. Escobar?
Thank you. So for this new D section, just to clarify, this is not language that we invented ourselves. This is language that is being recommended, correct?
By PLS, yes.
Okay, so this is again, because we took out a section, another part that we created, we're deleting that on our own.
Right.
And then this is the recommendation that we should do.
From the PLS updates,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Thank
From the
you.
North Carolina School Board Association, these are the revisions that they recommend.
And then this way, we're in line with the state, so we can get the money that we want. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any questions, any other questions? Okay. Our next policy is 3220, extracurricular activities and student organizations. Here we went along with our PLS update. We removed a local attendance standard. We removed some language that was recommended by our PLS, and we included some other minor editorial changes and updated legal references.
Any questions, board members? Mr. Walter?
So this is 3620, right?
Yes.
So there's a special circumstances, and we're removing student at-risk intervention plan. Can somebody explain why we would do that?
Well, this was part of our PLS update. So this did come down from North Carolina School Board Association. I think what happens sometimes is that we pigeonhole ourselves into putting things into place that we can't always do. And so we want to make sure that any student that is participating either fine arts or sports, we want to make sure that everyone is going to be qualified to do that. And so we want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Yeah, just by reading it though, you'd think that'd be student protection, but so.
You want me to add to that, Sandy?
Yes. But if you look at number 1, that also kind of goes to protection.
So basically that came down from the PLS. It used to be that you could put things like that into, say, a kid's IEP, to throw that out there for them to be eligible. But now you have to be eligible by the North Carolina High School Athletic Association standards anyway. They have to pass their minimum course load and be in attendance 85% of the time. So with all the other things in place, the accommodations, and now that you have to make a 60 to pass now also. So they took that out, so everyone has to be eligible. Okay, so that's why that was striking out there.
I appreciate a little more explanation on it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions? And the last policy is 4152, our local athletic eligibility. We felt like because we looked at policy 3220 and made some changes there with athletics, we did make some changes on
3620, right?
3620,
Yeah,
sorry. We
you.
wanted to make sure that we were in line with our local athletic eligibility policy, so we did make some changes in 4152 to make sure that they were aligned.
Mr. Walter?
Oh, we're essentially not changing anything. The 6th graders still are not eligible. Is that correct?
Correct. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, so we will move down to our items for consent or action, and we'll go to 8.01, our policies for approval on second reading.
Any questions on second reading? We had 3 policies up for second reading. 1310 parental involvement, 3220 technology, which is something that we looked at and brought back, and then 4040 7310 student staff relations. Did you guys have any additional questions on that?
Mr. Walter?
Yeah, on the parent involvement. I gotta find my spot. Sorry. Give me just a second. So under Q it says supportive services available to students including health services. Should we also put mental health services?
Let's see.
Just to make sure that's clear. And then the other question had to be really just the wording issues. Why not just use the word technology instead of system technological resources?
So you're saying for letter Q, not the new letter Q, not the crossed out Q, it says supportive services available to students including health services. Are you recommending that we add mental health?
Yeah, I didn't see it anywhere else, so just wanted to make it clear that those services are available and should be included. I mean, granted, I guess it falls under health services, but still.
So this is a second read, is that correct? So this has already gone through, this is the second time it's come to the board.
Yes. Good.
If you don't want to change it, then that's fine, but just trying to make it more clear for parents.
Okay, board members, well, since it's a second read, is everyone on the board in agreement to put these policies on consent agenda? Okay, so we'll put these on consent and we will approve them at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Was that with the change or without the change?
I would think it would be without the change, Mr. Walter, since it's a second read.
Then I'll ask for it to be on action, please.
So, all 3 of them on action? Okay, so that is, okay? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to 802 with our guaranteed maximum price amendment with Mr. Brian Cohn.
Good
Welcome
evening
back.
again. So the Department of Construction, we received our demolition GMP1 proposal for the Mary Frances Wall Pre-K Center replacement school project from GW Lyles Construction Company, who is our construction manager at risk firm. As we discussed at the July 8th Board of Education meeting, the approval of the A133 2019 standard form of agreement between the owner and constructor would need to be amended for this project. This approval is for the demolition package that is part of this project. Tonight we are requesting the approval of the A133 GMP amendment in the amount of $445,284. This approval will enable the construction manager to begin taking the necessary steps to mobilize and commence with the demolition portion of this project. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, so we are putting this on consent.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like it on action, please.
Excuse me?
I'd like it on action, please. Laura's not here.
Is there
Okay.
additional information you need, Mr. Walters?
Probably not, but what is the bid tabs don't match the ask?
Well, the bid tabs are just for the actual bidding of the demolition. The cost estimate breakdown shows you what the ask is for.
No questions at this time.
Okay.
Okay, so we will put this on consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Action, please.
Okay.
Okay, action. Thank you.
We'll move to 8.03, updated City of Concord SRO contract. Mr. Phil Penn. Welcome, Mr. Penn.
Good evening, thank you. So I know this contract will look a bit familiar, as we did go through an iteration of this a couple of weeks ago. When we brought the contract back to the Concord Police Chief, it actually sparked a very interesting conversation around how SROs are compensated, how the reimbursements work, and in particular how the summertime activities work, because we found that they were not aligned between the county SROs and the city SROs. Not through any intent, but just the way that it worked out. So it actually became a very productive conversation with them a few weeks ago, working through some of that. And what we've done in this revised contract is making a one-year contract instead of a two-year contract. That's intentional, and I'll explain why in a bit, as we want to develop some language over the next year that you'll see with respect to the summertime. We're changing the reimbursement rate to match what we do for the county, which is a little bit over $88,000 per officer. And I would stress that even on the officers that we provide a reimbursement to, that does not cover the full cost of the officer. If you added together the sections in the document that talk through about what the actual cost is between salary and benefits, the actual cost of an officer is a little over $100,500 per officer. So there's this embedded sort of subsidy that the City of Concord is providing even to the officers for which we are providing a reimbursement. The $88,000, the significance of that is the state designated rate for SROs, right? That's not a number that we made up. It's one that comes directly from DPI. The important part of the conversation was there's a lot of activity that the county SROs, the sheriffs, provide to our students during the summertime. They're very intensive around training, maintaining camps, and doing other activities to stay in close contact with the kids that they support most. And what emerged from that conversation is a desire by the Concord Police Department to basically do the same thing over the summertime. They recognize the importance of staying in contact with those kids and not taking what is effectively an 8 or a 10-week break in between when school is in session. So what you'll see in the contract, obviously, is, as I said, a change to a one-year contract. And the reason that we included under Article 3, Section 2, Part C, is that we're going to work collectively over the next year. The we, in this case, on this side, is Amy Lauder and her team, to develop what that's going to look like for training programs and summertime activities for the officers to work with kids. There was one very specific, scroll down just a little bit further. There it is. So there was actually a very good conversation around how the officers do foot and bicycle patrols in those neighborhoods where they support the kids as a way of maintaining contact with them. So it's a bit more of formalization, and one of the reasons we left this open as a one-year contract now is to develop that language over the next year to bring it back to potentially moving it back to a 2-year contract once we have that developed. It also gives us an opportunity to sort of address changes in their cost as they go through their labor process on their end. And I have a feeling, you know, when we talk about a $275,000 cost increase for Cabarrus County Schools as a result of the reimbursement change, we're effectively getting a lot more services out of these officers that support us. You know, there's 22 or 23 City of Concord SROs and their supervisors that come out and support the kids in this way. You know, I think in the conversation that we had in the room with Dr. Kopicki after, when we briefed him on what was happening, that's a good trade, frankly, to get that value and get that continuity with the kids that are most at risk. So this is a revision that they're comfortable with. We know that their attorneys are comfortable with. We've taken it through Attorney Eisenhower on his side to make sure they're comfortable with it as well. But I do need to bring it back to you because it's in a substantively different form, particularly with respect to the reimbursement rates, and that's why we've got it back here again today.
Any questions, board members? No questions? Is the board then in agreement to put this on the consent agenda for our business meeting? Okay.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to 8.04 S&P Procurement Plan with Ms. Stephanie Allman. Welcome, Ms. Allman.
Thank you. Which one's on? Is this the one that's on? I think it's this one. I don't want to give you a bunch of feedback. So first, we have the procurement plan. This is an updated document. NCDPI puts out a template every so often when there are updates. And the major change to this one is the micro purchase threshold is increasing from $3,500 to $10,000. Micro purchase is when instead of getting 3 competitive quotes, we might choose to share the love, as it were, between 2 or 3 different vendors, such as maybe buy washing machines from this company one time, another company the next time, and just rotating it. We really don't do that practice. It's very rare that we do. We typically get 3 quotes for everything, but we're required to put that into the update for the procurement plan. Another change that is far more minor is the Iran Divestment Act. It used to be the burden of the school district to ensure that no companies we were going to do business with had any dealings with Iran. That has since relaxed a bit, and the burden is now on the vendor to certify that they don't do any business. So that has been a change, and then there are just some small editorial changes and some corrections. So we took the template, I updated our existing document. Mr. Penn has had a look at it. Mr. Eisenhower and his team had reviewed it, and we discussed some and answered some questions on there. And this is the final draft of that. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, board members? Mr. Walter?
So on your specific procedures for purchase of goods and services by category, there's some red line there that was about locally grown produce, chemicals. Are those new, or are they just changed?
Those are just changed, and they're really a statement of how we plan to do business, so that if any interested vendors were to see how often we were going to do bids, this is sort of a general guideline.
So what was the change? I mean, there's mixed. Some say as needed, some say annually, some say
yes,
semi-annually or needed.
And typically we do most things annually if they're going to be a contract. So food, supplies, chemicals, things like that. Those are typical annual contracts with renewals. Things that would be as needed would be, say, uniforms. We're probably going to order them every year, but we might place another order if we have a lot of new employees or need to replace or make a change to the style. So it just allows us a little bit of flexibility if we need it in order to meet the needs of the
Is that where it
district.
says request for a quote?
Pardon me?
Is that where it says request for a quote?
Yes. Request for quote is the method. Some things are done by a formal bid, a sealed bid. Request for quote can be where we're sending out an email asking how much would you sell us this double stack oven, or it could be phone calls, how much is this washing machine, or things like that.
Okay, I guess we now cover everything's included in here now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Okay. Everyone in agreement to put this on consent? Okay. So we'll go to 8.05 with the school meal prices.
So we'll end this on a happy note. We have no increase for school meal prices. They are staying the same as they were in the 22-23 increase. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be doing this. The 22-23 increase was just a dime for breakfast, a dime for lunch, and a nickel for quick bites, which is the kind of the supreme meal or the prime meal that we have at the high school level. So the question often is, how are we able to do that? Basically, it's a combination of things. We had a higher rate of reimbursement during the COVID era because how much things were costing, and also received supply chain assistance funds. We were able to build an adequate fund balance in order to meet our expenses. And so they're still at a level where we don't have to ask for a price increase. So we're also very careful with the money that we spend in terms of both labor and food supplies and things like that. So we're very careful with each dollar that comes in to make it last as much as we can. And then, of course, the next question is, how long can we hold it? Well, we'll hold it as long as we possibly can. Certainly, with your approval, this will last through the end of this coming school year. But there are other factors that do affect this. Some of them are listed. Cost of things could increase. Paid lunch equity. You have not seen me come before you for paid lunch equity in about 4 years because of COVID for the most part. When all that starts to settle down, you'll probably see me come back, and we have to, it's a little bit of a complicated formula that I'll explain once that rolls around again, but right now we're not required to increase according to the federal law. If we happen to need new equipment that we need extra funding for, right now we've been very fortunate to have enough funding that we've replaced and added a ton of equipment. And then anything that could be required labor costs, for instance, if the General Assembly mandates not a price increase, a salary increase, they obviously don't fund that, so we would fund that. So if we can absorb it, we will, obviously, because we want to keep the prices as low as possible. But if not, then I'll be coming to you with a calculation asking for a reasonable increase in the coming years. And that is it.
Any questions, board members?
That is great news, and thank you very much for keeping an eye on that, and I think that's going to help our families this year.
I think so too.
Ms. Sandage.
You may not have the answer to this, but it brought up a question for me about those lunch balances and,
Yes.
and how we're doing with that. How do we do with that last year, and then the plan going forward? Maybe you could speak to that, Dr. Kapicki or Mr. Penn.
Sure. So we had, and please jump in whenever you feel the need. So we ended the school year with $116,000 in unpaid meal debt. We have a similar system to what we had last year, but we are really trying to dive in and really go for some deep training and involvement and collaboration among all the parties involved, which would be SMP, both the office and the cafeteria manager, as well as the school principal and any staff that they may involve in the process, so that there's a plan for how to
Reduce the deficit at the end of the year.
basically, bottom line, that's it.
So is that normal from previous years, or is that higher, lower?
It's higher, but it is, I will say, it's a nationwide problem. You've probably heard about it on the news. Congress is grappling with it day after day, and the movement towards more CEP schools, the community eligibility provision, last year they reduced the threshold, and you remember when I came to you in the spring and was talking about that, you still have to be able to afford to do that because the district does fund a lot of it, but they are moving towards that. So I take that as a win, but eventually I think, I feel like Congress is going to have to make some decisions, either federal or state.
And is that still coming from the school? Like, does it come from where is it being paid for?
Are you talking about the unpaid debt? Yes.
Correct.
So the federal law says that S&P cannot carry uncollectible meal debt. So the district then makes the decision for how to fund that.
Yeah, and in some cases it was charitable donations, in some cases it was community organizations that became involved, and in most cases it was the school funds that were used to pay off the balance. I think one of the key things going forward is, now that we've recognized how big this problem is for 2 consecutive years, it's more about early interventions to not let the balances get as big as they did. By the time you get to March and April and May, you're already at a 6-figure problem, right? So it's a question of how do we make sure people are engaged early in that process so that you're addressing problems before they get bigger at the beginning of the year. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds like we have a plan in place. Thank you.
We do.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Walter?
Yeah, you sparked a question on a national level too, but food waste is apparently still a big thing with schools. Do we we haven't had an update on that in a long time.
There was a study done, but
where do
it's
we
been a
stand?
number of years ago. There's still a mandate at the federal level that students get a fruit or vegetable on the tray. There's no way around that. What districts typically do, which is what we do, is we try to encourage them to take it. Well, I mean, they obviously have to take it, but we try to offer things that appeal to students. We try to do taste tests. We do all those kind of things to make it where they're actually eating the things and not wasting them. We also have something called offer versus serve, where the students only have to take 3 of the 5 components that we offer. The 5 components being a meat or a protein, fruit, vegetable, a grain, or fluid milk. So as long as they have 3 of those, and one of those is a fruit or vegetable, they are good to go. That's considered a full reimbursable meal. Getting that to helping everyone understand that is the recurring challenge. So we put that on our menus. We put that on the education materials that we send out. It's very helpful when, especially at the lower grades where the students are just coming in and eating meals, to understand that, because the serving size is the same for the little tiny ones as it is for at least the middle grades. So that's pretty much how we attack it, and we try to education is really the best way that we can go about it, because we're required to put those things on the tray. But I would say that it is probably still a problem at some level, depending on what school you're at and things like that.
So we're not taking an inventory or checking, and because it's a shame that we're buying this food and it ends up in the trash. It's just going right in the trash can.
Absolutely, that's a huge
that
shame.
doesn't benefit anybody. So
you're exactly right. Yes.
Any other questions? Mr. Treadaway.
Excuse me, I just want to underscore what you said and what Mr. Pent, the plans about the debt, because I know as a building principal, part of it is not just the amount, but it's the timing of it. You've basically got to hold back school funding, not sure how much you're going to need at the end of the year, and by the time you do have that number, it's almost too late to encumber other things that we need. So I applaud the whole idea of getting in front of that as much as we can.
And we do provide on a weekly basis, just so it's not a giant surprise, but you are very right.
Thank you for your presentation.
Absolutely.
Okay, board members, we've come to the end of our meeting. We'll move to 9.01, where I'll call for a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
So, second.
I have a motion by Ms. Escobar, a second by Mr. Floyd. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? This meeting is now adjourned.